one thing I want to talk about is we are here now. Afrobeats is here now. So like, what's the way forward? What next?
Yo, it's Bimma. Welcome to a special episode of Bars and Nuggets, where we're going to dive deep into the sound of Afrobeats and really get into how it's impacting us from many different places. You know, this is the first time we're actually going to have a panel-style conversation where it'll be myself joined with a co-host, Grace Ladoja, the founder of Homecoming, which is a festival coming out of Lagos, as well as a platform to really elevate different artists. We'll also be joined by 3 other artists as well that are really impacting the culture of Afrobeats, that particular music scene and that movement, which for the first year will actually be entered into the Grammys as a totally new category, which speaks highly to the fact that this is something that is here to stay and is truly, a foothold in music at this particular moment in time. This is Bars and Nuggets on Amazon Music. Let's get into it. What's going on, y'all? Make some noise. First, have a seat. No, come here. You ready? We're here. We're hanging out. We're together. Today.
We just met.
In the foreseeable. We're going to welcome in Bloody, Fireboy, Sarz. That's right, y'all make some noise. Thank y'all so much for joining us. For those of you all that don't know, I'm Bimma. This is Bars and Nuggets, and on this platform, we really want to get to know the artist. We really want to get to know behind the music and the authentic story. And so I'm so happy to be sitting here with you today, Grace, and what you've been building. Would love for you to share a little bit more about yourself, and we can get to know our artists as well. But I thought it'd be great for us to have a little bit of dialogue first.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having us, because it's a really important time and an important conversation. So I'm Grace Ladoja. I have a festival out of Lagos, Nigeria called Homecoming, who some of you have performed at before. We've been so blessed because we've had so many artists touch our stage, from Wizkid to Davido to Thames, etc. But also one of our best moments was that it was Rema's first ever show, was Homecoming. And I remember that time, and just like, that's to me what the festival is about. Like being there when people are just at the start of their journey and going with them all the way, and being a place that they feel safe and happy to be part of. So having said all that, we're so blessed to have this amazing collection of people here today that at such an important time in music are representing so much. So without further ado, do you want to introduce everyone?
Absolutely. As y'all know, amazing artist, Bloody Civilian, coming from Abuja, artist and producer. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
How you feeling?
Feel great. Thank you.
Fireboy, amazing singer-songwriter coming out of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely. So, Sarz, we caught up back in the back.
Yeah, we did.
Cool, chill, man.
Yeah.
How you doing? Coming out of Lagos?
Really good, man. Can't complain.
Ain't complain.
Yeah.
Well, Grace, how about you kick us off?
Yeah, I think we can kick off with just the fact that, well, Nigeria seems very powerful. Everybody is from Nigeria, but when we talk about music and Afrobeats in general, I really want to kind of get a bit of an understanding of like how you got into music and like what your musical influences is, so we can just see the landscape. So I'll start with you, Sarz.
Music was by mistake, to be honest. It wasn't planned or anything. I thought I was going to be like a software developer or play basketball professionally. But, all of that didn't work out. Growing up listening to music, was heavily influenced by hip-hop, heavily influenced by Dr. Dre, Timbaland, the Neptunes. But I was very interested in the producers. I would only check out, music when I know what producer produced the song. I didn't really care for lyrics or things like that.
Bloody, as someone that's also like a producer from another part of Nigeria, do you want to tell us a bit about your story and how you got into music?
Yeah, so similarly, I also sort of started by mistake as well. I just had an app I was playing with in school, and it just happened to have like so many plugins and things like that. And then I eventually just started making instrumental tracks that I didn't know I was producing when I actually started. So it was just to create the songs that I had. From then on, I just kept building on it, and then kept buying more stuff, kept learning more stuff, and pretty much became what it is now.
Amazing.
Sound like you got a bit obsessed about it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
I feel like you're both geeky, like you were in the computer space. So that makes sense. The producer thing kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And you, Fireboy?
I wouldn't call mine a mistake. I would say I call it providence. So I was in school. I didn't really start living life on my own terms until I left home for uni and away from my parents, away from family. I lived a pretty sheltered life. So being alone in school just kind of like opened me up to a lot of opportunities. And I was always a writer guy. Poems, love letters to my school crush.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was poetry and writing for me. But I was always hanging out with the cool kids in school. The cool kids were the dancers, the musicians, and whatnot. And then I found myself in the studio that day. I always knew I could sing. I just didn't think I was going to pursue it. And then I made my first song, and I was like, wow. It felt really great to actually create something that I could listen to over and over. I was like, I made this thing in minutes, and I keep listening. And this is such a great feeling, and I think that just struck something in me. I was like, you know what, this is it.
This is it.
Because way prior to that, I'd been looking for something I could say I was really good at, something that I could really, and I was like, okay, this is it. Yeah. Since then, I stopped going to class.
You know what? I love two things that have come out of this, two characteristics of Nigerians. One, it's like both of you were trying different things, so that hustle, like you're going to try stuff to see what kind of clicks, and your confidence just giving me a lot of inspiration. But I think it's like growing up in that space is quite instrumental in how you defined your career. Like, I think that's a thread between a lot of artists coming from.
Yeah.
Wow. Fireboy, I wanted to ask you, like you said, making it, hearing your song and like really getting excited about that. When did you start to notice that other people were getting excited about the music that you were making, and how did that impact you?
To be honest, right from the jump.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a compliment.
I'm not lie. Yeah, but there was always room for improvement, obviously. But like right from the jump, when I was in the studio, you can't sing, And then I had a couple of friends who had guitars who would sneak off into school late hours playing guitar, and I would just sing on for hours. And people wanted to listen to me. I just felt great. So I did not need to rush it. I didn't feel any need to rush myself or like, I need to blow up real quick.
Yep.
It just gave me the confidence to like just take it one step at a time and like really go through the process.
That's so great.
I love that. When it comes to Afrobeats, we've been spending a lot of time talking about the artists, whether it's Burna Boy or we're talking about Tyler. I mean, how can we not talk about them? Their songs are fire, I get it. But I want to spend some time talking about the production, talking about Sarz. Like, Sarz has been such an architect behind the sound, especially in the US. When we think about the hits that are in the US, he's likely behind them. Many might say he's like the hit boy of Afrobeats.
Sarz, I think that you're really important in music in general and the global trajectory of Afrobeats, actually. When you think about the global trajectory of Afrobeats and where it's going now, how do you feel like, and why do you feel like it's become so popular right now? Why do you feel like the rise is happening now?
I'd say access, the internet, streaming platforms, social media. So just being able to connect Nigerians in Africa and not just Nigerians, Africans in Africa and diaspora, I'd say that played a major role. It's just like decentralizing, the centralized powers. Yeah. So people have more access, to music.
And more open to it maybe now as well.
And you feel like that is like the other side? So you're in Nigeria, access is so important, but what do you think about it outside of Nigeria? Why do you think it's so popular?
Yeah, I'd say it's the same reason everywhere. Like, it's just access to it. It's easier to, like I said, access the music. Yeah.
And then Bloody, I'm going to ask you a similar question, because I think that also, as well as access, there is a newness to it. There's a newness to the way that the genres are changing from just being purely Afrobeat. So it's like, for instance, like I remember the role that Santi and Adensi and DRB had in Orte. There's like genres coming out of that, and someone that is quite unapologetic about what you talk about and being quite genre blending. How do you feel like that popularity of the sounds that are changing is affecting how well it's doing globally?
I think it's definitely just a passing down of inspiration. Because if you look back at like some of the people who, were the pioneers, like Two-Face, you can hear how he was fusing the influences and like pop music of that soundscape. And similarly right now, that's pretty much how it's, how the younger generation of people are pretty much just improving on what's been done, because there's really just nothing new. It's just reinterpreting what we already have. And also different perspectives. The country's changing, so people are talking about different things. The story's changing, so people want to write about different things as well. So yeah, I think that's pretty much just how it's, evolving into what it is.
Do you think there's an opportunity because of the way that the country's changing to express differently and maybe speak about things that couldn't be spoken about before or expressed before?
Yes, some things are changing, making people, I guess, more open to certain things. And then at the same time, it's also due to necessity. There are things that our generation has to deal with that generations before didn't have to. They had free education, we didn't. All that in the environment is affecting the things that people are putting in the music, because people are just really talking about what's happening on ground. And now it's like, it's a crazy place sometimes.
Fireboy, for you, when you think about Nigerian tradition and sound and music, how do you infuse those elements kind of based off of what Bloody was saying into your sound today? Like, is that a conscious thing that you try to intentionally do? Yeah, where's that come from?
For me, if I'm speaking for myself, I wouldn't say I intentionally do it. It just comes off like that. When I'm making my songs, like I always say, I don't make Afrobeats. I just sort of like combine stuff. I like to make different kinds of music. So even when I'm making R&B or I'm doing pop, you can hear the Yoruba H factor in it. Like, you just know this person is not an American person, but so you can always tell that, my roots and my identity is always in my music. I don't try. But sometimes, especially when I'm collaborating with artists from, outside Africa, I always try to make sure I put my imprint in there and try to like stay original.
Yeah.
It's very important to do that for the culture. One thing about Afrobeats is when we make music, we try to make music that caters to everyone. So sometimes you want to sing something that people can easily sing to. That's why most times kids love.
I actually use kids as a filter of a good song now, because if they're liking it, it's like it's good.
Because that's the thing about Africans. There's this communal vibe to everything we do. Like when you blow up and you're the hottest thing around, everybody wants to see you. They will call you for their 90th grandma's burial. They'll call you for their trophy, and you have to be there.
How does that feel? Because like I don't know. Sometimes from this American standpoint, it can feel like a lot of weight to feel like you're representing a culture, and I guess maybe for all of you, as you are, rising, and there is this spotlight on you. Like, do you feel like, that sense of like pride of like, yeah, no doubt, like, is it without a question?
Without a question, because we're all in this. Like, this is, like I said, there's a communal feeling to everything we do. Like, even when it seems like everyone's just doing their thing, we're all doing it for the greater good of everybody. Like when someone sells out an arena, that means in the next 2 years or the next 6 months, another person is going to sell it out. Like it's always a communal vibe. So we're all just celebrating each other. And even though it seems like we're just doing our thing differently, we're doing
the same thing.
Because actually I don't think anyone's articulated but that. When the wind is behind someone, everyone
exactly. It's like pushing it forward, and
next person, you celebrate it rather than bring them down, which I think is really important. Sarz, you just did a really great track called Happiness, I love. Can you tell us a bit about that collaboration? Because it's kind of an unlikely collaboration. Like, I don't think anyone thought that Sarz, Gunner and Ashake are going to do a track together about being happy. So can you tell us a bit about that?
from first time I made a track, I just wanted to do something that encompasses like different things I'm inspired by, different genres I'm inspired by. Happiness was one of those tracks that I had on my vision board. It was just a beat then, and I had like other tracks that were done, but it was just a beat and it was there because I just knew like, you know, with the right song, this is gonna go. So I remember Shaka and I have been talking about making music, and he came to my house and there was first beat I played to him, and he was like, "Oh, this is very different. He's gonna try something." You know, I didn't think anything was gonna come out of it. Then actually finished the track that night.
Wow.
Yeah.
You liked it?
Yeah. It was fire. I played the track to a few of my friends, and one of them was like, "I think this needs a rapper. You know, I think, you know, it would actually be fire as a rapper on it." And as soon as he said that, you know, I was just so obsessed with that idea, and I was like, okay, you know, I think this needs, you know, someone. And I just thought like Gunna was the perfect fit. So we sent him the song. And I think he was working on a song with Shaka before, but as soon as he heard that, he became obsessed with that song. It was better. It was like, you know what, this is what I want to do now. I'm just going to do it. And, you know, everything, you know, came out how it was supposed to.
That's beautiful. It's a really organic collaboration.
Yeah, very.
And a very like, I think that the mood of happiness is really important in actually the music why the music is doing well, because it's quite uplifting on some levels.
Yeah, personally, I think it's like associated with the feeling. You know, you hear that song and you feel happy. Yeah, and
at a time where things are not great.
Yeah, with so much that's going on.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the spirit of actually Africa, and the music from Africa make things like either speak about what's going on or lift people to give them.
Yeah, because there's just so much going on in the country to bring you down to, you know, need to use our voices and our talents to like uplift everyone else.
But also, Bloody, you're kind of going against that grain on some levels because your music's quite unapologetic. You're talking about things that are really important to young people in Africa in general. You are a producer and a handful of female producers in the world, but especially in Africa. You are also from Abuja, which is not Lagos. Lagos and Abuja are very different places. So I just want you to talk a little bit about like how you've been able to use all of that to kind of push forward and collaborate with people like Odumodu, who's at the same kind of point in his career to kind of bring a new wave of another part of Nigeria forward.
I think definitely the city Abuja plays a huge part in that because it's Nigeria, but it's very small. It's a very tight-knit community. It's just a bunch of people who want to do music, and it's not as gentrified as Lagos. So a lot of people, you know, just develop their sound with no sense of urgency. It was just honest, getting out creatively what you really want to do. And so most of us, before moving to Lagos to actually try, you know, the big city, like most of us pretty much just had our sound. So similar to Odumodu, myself, and like various artists from there, everyone has their thing that they really have developed over the years, unpaid as well. So so we really take the time to do that, and it really helps in community building. People are more open to collaborating, and we just have that mindset coming into Lagos, knowing how to leverage, how to find allies and people, build a community wherever you are, and go. So
when you think about your journey so far, and obviously coming from, you know, a smaller place, what are some of the challenges that have come along with that? And maybe also, you know, as Grace is speaking towards being a woman in this space, right? Like, what are some of those challenges?
Because that ain't all easy.
No, it wasn't easy. Definitely, for us moving to Lagos, it's very steep. So the city's bigger, the bills are higher, it's louder, and there's just a lot of opportunities, and then you have to learn discernment. Whereas in Abuja, you just go for whatever's available.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a learning experience that you need. And even as a female coming into Lagos, you definitely need to know how to navigate, build a community of people around you, and just keep going.
Are there some mentors that have been around the way that kind of help with facilitating it?
Yeah, I had one very special mentor that basically just, when I moved to Lagos, she told me, don't sign anything without letting me. And
shout out to that mentor.
yeah, she really did save my life. I can't lie. Everything changed because of that one particular person. And she's a woman, and she reached out without me giving her anything. And it was super key. So shout out to Osai.
Lots of shout outs there. It's a cool, like reminder. Thank you. That's amazing. I think that one of the biggest opportunities for Africa is for us to create our own economy in a soft power like music. Music's probably our biggest cultural asset. You know, you've all been nominated for Grammys. What advice can you give people that are not from Africa, that are trying to help to grow our economy and our businesses, to actually be an ally versus an op? I say that. Sometimes you feel like you are helping, and I was there before. I didn't grow up in Nigeria. I went there for the first time 11 years ago, you know, as an adult. And I came with the same keenness to want to help and do so many things. And I got shut down. Honestly, I got shut down by people in this room, actually. They real talk to me, because it's like you can come with the keenness and you think that, you know, you've got an idea. But one of the things I learned was that anything I'm thinking, someone's already doing it. It just might not be seen. So what I try to do is find everyone that was trying to do the similar things and kind of build a community around that. So when we talk about people trying to help our music industry grow, what could be the tips that we could give to some people in this room or watching this to actually help us further that, so that we can have a generation that can actually make money from this great, you know, rise of a genre that is so important right now?
Yeah, I don't think it's something anyone can do in a hurry. I think you have to be on ground, have to come visit, probably have to live in the country, see how we do things, see the culture, see why we make music the way we make music. You have to see everything for yourself. You know, you can't just come or just be like offshore and send money and think things will, you know, work out. You actually have to be present, and you have to take time with us to build everything. Yeah, from infrastructure to the economic problems we have, you know, everything. You just have to be like very invested, you know, and not just because it's a rave of the moment.
So yeah, you need to be very hands-on. You need to respect the way we do things. If it was just the music, you can say, okay, yeah, you can go in with that knowledge. Oh, I know music, this is how it works. But there's a reason why we make music the way we do, and we have to respect that. So if you really respect that and, you know, try to learn how things are done, it'll be easy to help.
Now, Afrobeats isn't the only big story coming out of Nigeria. There's also a big tech story, a multi-billion-dollar tech story, which is interesting to me because you now have the combination of creativity and music and Afrobeats combined with tech. You find your way looking at like, this is like the center of a lot happening all in one particular place. I guess, you know, as we think about, we got a couple minutes left here, so I want to make sure we do continue to get to as much as we can here, but I think future facing would be a good point as we think about where we're at in this conversation right now. And maybe we can start with you, Bloody, in that regard.
So, I mean, from a producer standpoint, I always have this talk with like all the people that I work with, my team and, you know, my partners. I would just always make this joke about how long Afrobeats has morphed for. I don't think it dawned on people how long it's been around for, but it's really here because of the production. It keeps reimagining itself, and I just can't understand how that can happen. Just one theory is that African music is diverse, you know, and it's the source of a lot of other genres. So it's almost endless. The multiple ways people can interpret and resize the sound. And I find that so fascinating. You can almost not predict what the sound is going to be in like a couple of months ahead. You know, there are a lot of people breaking out now that a lot of people felt would never work. And funny enough, I'm one of those people. I feel a lot of people didn't think it would work, and then it did. So I'm actually just curious what it's gonna sound like in a couple of months. I'm really curious, and I know the burden will be on producers making some new stuff that the artists are going to come and then vibe and do their thing. So I'm just excited.
I'm just so happy that producers are being recognized for the amount of work they put into that as well. So.
Yeah, the whole genre wouldn't be here if they weren't putting in the time, for sure.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk about is we are here now. Afrobeats is here now. So like, what's the way forward? What next?
Yeah.
The whole Afrobeats to the world thing. I think that conversation should have been like, we are here. Like we have to, like, even before all this Grammy talk, we've already been recognized. We've achieved so much that it's we are here now. So we need to build a structure. We don't have to like saturate everything. You know, where artists can just be themselves. There's no pressure to try to be more than what you are. I think if we can build a structure, we are good. There won't be any conversation about is Afrobeats this or that. Not like that's what I'm looking forward to for the future. It's an Afrobeats that has structure. The sound is perfect.
Yeah, and that structure leads to longevity and sustainability and access for everybody.
Adding to what they said, I'm really excited for all of the opportunity that's coming to the Afrobeat space, you know, from collaboration with the music, you know, to sync opportunities, to, you know, artists getting like deals, distribution deals, record deals. We're, you know, taking a lot of creative people out of poverty, which is very important. And, you know, we're uplifting more people to help more people. I personally am also excited for, you know, the works we're doing with like producers and artists and just giving them platforms to do things that I didn't believe I would achieve, you know, 10 years ago. I'm really excited for that, you know, so the future is really bright. Actually, the present is super bright as well. Yeah. So things like that, you know, also excited to the potential in the continent as well. Looking forward to having more arenas, more local labels that can, you know, stand, you know, with the greats as well. So I'm really excited to see how that shapes out.
This opportunity is such a blessing because it can create so much opportunity for so many people. So when you think about it, and I'm always going to be controversial, the music industry is in the worst place it's ever been. I'll tell you that as a fact. It's not in a great place, right? Because it doesn't work. The music industry is made to sell records. We sell data now. It's a different industry. We're selling a different product. But the people there don't want to see that change. So now we have an opportunity in Africa
to get it right.
So how are we going to do that? You know, so I think that's what I'm most excited about. Also, I'm excited about the Grammys because I think that it's a start. And it's like, I always think that sometimes we talk to ourselves, but people watching the Grammys are going to find out about artists they've never heard of, ever. They're going to see Burna Boy perform. They don't know who he is, you know, and it's going to bring more traction to the great work that we're doing. So I always say it's the lesser of two evils to be part of it. It's better that we're part of it than not, right? So I'm excited about that too. What are you excited about?
I'm excited to genuinely learn more. You know, we're talking a lot about innovation here in music and in sound, and also the diaspora. You know what I mean? And like it is dope to like, you know, I know you're talking at this sense. We're just talking about Afrobeats, but like the morphing, like you were talking about, when you were talking to me about like it's gonna change in a month. You know, and I'm like, what you mean? but that's dope. Like it's like sometimes stuff could be so stagnant, right? But this is ever evolving. The evolution of it, and in many ways it feels like, wow, this is just the tip of the iceberg. So to me, that's really exciting. And also I just want to thank you all for bringing, you know, this conversation and this awareness to this platform. It's been really great to have this conversation with each of you and learn so much more. So thank you all for that.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
This has been lovely.
This has been great. Y'all make some noise. So what I love so much about that conversation in particular was how much the artists really loved the creative process. And I mean, like, it wasn't about like outcomes, it wasn't about awards or anything like that. Like, there literally were, you know, first time being on the Grammy stage, but what they were talking about literally was just like investing in like new plugins, trying new sounds, continue to evolve the sound, continue to grow it. I thought that was super fascinating. It's just the only thing that you can get when you're dealing with a sound that's so new and it's just really becoming itself in and of its own. And then the other part that I thought was super interesting that I'm taking away with me, and I'm like, yo, I have to go experience a live Afrobeat show in Nigeria, because the way that like Bloody Siv was talking about how different it is over there versus in the States, it made it sound like it's just so much bigger than what you can imagine from videos and even just the conversation, like its own thing. And so I'm like, that's something I gotta go check out for myself. So I had a phenomenal time in that conversation, and I hope you did as well. Thanks so much for joining us on Bars and Nuggets.